In the summer of 2002, as George Bush was planning his invasion of Iraq, a war was raging in Israel and the occupied territories. The Intifada, the Palestinian uprising, was in its second year. 600 Israelis had been killed in suicide bombings and shootings, and Israel had killed 1,500 Palestinians. But now, a secret initiative was underway to stop the killing. A British intelligence agent was in the occupied territories to meet the Tanzim, militants loyal to the Palestinian president Yasser Arafat. He made his pitch. Suicide bombs were not winning the war.
I said to them they had to think what were the appropriate tools, because it was quite clear that many of the actions that we'd seen during the Intifada, the bus bombings, the attacks on children eating pizzas in restaurants in the cities, had totally alienated not only the Americans, but all of the European public opinion.
At first, the Tanzim leaders were not impressed.
مرفوض أنا فيش عندي هدنة ولا عندي هدنة في اغتيالات فيش عندي هدنة في معتقل بالسجن لا روح للمعتقلين عدم الاجتياحات خذ شو بدك مني.
They would argue we've tried to look for other means, non-violent means, and they have failed before. And what do you expect? You want us to surrender?
يعني لما تفوت دبابة على جنين تضرب لها تحية؟ مش راح أضرب لها تحية راح أهاجمها.
I said no one could accept, that twin girls of 8 who'd been shot recently in a settlement were responsible for the plight in which the Palestinians were now in, and that they needed to reflect carefully on what were the right tools to move ahead.
The Tanzim, Arafat supporters, agreed to stop suicide attacks. Now the British agent told them they must also persuade the other factions in the Palestinian resistance.
I said to them, look, the American public, they don't know the difference. Who is Al-Aqsa? Who are the Tanzim? Who's Hamas? These are, from their perspective, just people that are killing Israeli civilians.
Hamas were the most powerful of the militant Islamic groups fighting against Israel. They had launched more than 50 suicide attacks, and their political wing challenged the authority of Arafat himself. The founder and spiritual leader of Hamas, a 65-year-old quadriplegic, was approached by one of Arafat's officials.
Sheikh Yassin lived in a very humble home. He was crippled and he was sitting in his moving chair, and the rest of the leadership of Hamas was sitting around him.
لا يوجد في العالم من يستطيع أن يضغط على حماس لتغير استراتيجيتها وهدفها لا السلطة ولا غير السلطة.
My point was, we've got to give it a chance. We've got to start with a ceasefire and commit ourselves to it in order to draw the world to support a ceasefire by the Israelis. The Hamas leadership was willing to listen. I think then the most negative person was Sheikh Rantisi. And the retort from Sheikh Rantisi was, but look at what the Israelis are doing to our children.
If they are going to stop massacring our civilians, our kids, up till now, in the last Intifada, they killed more than 1,000 of our children. If they are going to stop that, then I think we are ready to stop martyrdom bombers.
But the Hamas leaders lived in daily fear of assassination. The Palestinian minister had an offer they would find hard to refuse.
I really had to tell them directly, I also come with a guarantee from the Saudi government, from Prince Saud and from Prince Abdullah. If you accept a ceasefire, the Saudis produce their guarantees that they'll do their best. One, to protect you from any targeted assassinations, and two, that the Saudi government, if you hold on to that ceasefire, will do its best with the Americans, particularly the Americans, to lead Israel into a simultaneous ceasefire. But you've got to start.
قلنا نحن نوافق إذا كانت كجزء مرحلي على أساس هدنة ليس على أساس تنازل عن حقوقنا في فلسطين.
He had his warnings that the Israelis might not respond. He had his qualifications, but he accepted. So I went back to my house very serene, happy and satisfied that something was achieved.
The British intelligence officer was given the news that Hamas were preparing to join the other groups in a ceasefire declaration.
I had ensured that the authorities in Israel were aware that I believed we were close to a final agreement on a ceasefire.
That same day, Israeli intelligence were closing in on the military leader of Hamas. The Israeli defense minister, who was in England window shopping for weapons, got a call from one of his soldiers.
ומייק אומר לי, שמע, פואד, החברים שלנו ממליצים ללכת היום על שחאדה.
לא היה לי באותו זמן קשר מאובטח עם שר הביטחון, אז דיווחתי לו ברמזים, והוא הבין מהר מאוד למה אני מתכוון.
אמרתי, שאלת את כל המעורבים בעסק. התכוונתי, האם שאלת את ראש השב"כ, האם שאלת את ראש המודיעין, האם שאלת את... שאלתי, הכל נקי והם ממליצים על זה. אמרתי בהצלחה.
The Israeli military now had to choose the weapon to take Shahada out.
הערכה הייתה שפצצה שהיא יותר קטנה מפצצה של טון לא בהכרח תגיע לתוצאה הנדרשת, דהיינו לוודא את הריגתו שלו.
The one-ton bomb that the Israeli Air Force dropped on an apartment block in Gaza City succeeded in killing Salah Shahada, but it also killed 13 other Palestinians, including 9 children.
ולכן הוחלט שנכון לקחת פה את הסיכון של פצצה גדולה. בדיעבד השיקול הזה היה טעות.
After killing of kids, children, women, innocents of Palestinians using American F-16, I think retaliation is coming and everything will be considered as a target.
The British agents' ceasefire mission had come to a dead end. President George W. Bush had his own reason for wanting the killing to stop: his planned invasion of Iraq. To deflect criticism from the Arab world, he announced that he supported the creation of a state for the Palestinian people, with conditions.
My vision is 2 states, living side by side, in peace and security. I call on the Palestinian people to elect new leaders, leaders not compromised by terror.
The young king of Jordan had a vested